Hello and welcome back to the Leinster Listen. I'm your host Mick Lennon and this is episode 44, the review of Leinster versus Benetton in round 16 of the URC. This episode's content will be URC match results, the overall opinion of the game, the analysis of the game events, and then URC positioning after this weekend. Alright, so we're actually going to just go through some of the match results there, and I'm going to discuss a little bit ahead of schedule there on the positioning and potential positioning of that final 8. So going straight into it here, we have Benetton 29, Leinster 26. Great start to that one. Okay, moving on. Stormers 48, Glasgow 12. Huge win there. That completely changed the top of the table there. Lions 33, Connacht 21. A big loss there. I thought Connacht would pull through with that one. Munster 41, Ulster 14. Very demanding win there by Munster. I think Ulster's injury woes are just ahead of them, unfortunately. Bulls 23, Scarlets 21. Very close game there. Actually want to rewatch even just the highlights if you can. It was actually a very entertaining game. Next up we have Cardiff 24, Ospreys 21, Edinburgh 33, Sharks 28. A very good game as well. I would watch the highlights of that one as well. It was actually quite an enjoyable game. And then last but not least, we Dragons 19, Zebra 18. So, where does that put the URC table after round 16? Well, Stormers have actually taken the pole position there with 56 points, nipping Glasgow out of that position and putting them into second with 55 points. Lions are in third now after leapfrogging a good way up that table with 53 points. We are joint with them, but lose on points difference. We have 53 points and we're in fourth. Next up, you have Munster with 51 points, Cardiff with 50 points, Bulls with 49 points, Ulster in the 8th position with 47 points, and then Connacht in 9th with 44 points. The only team who's actually able to make the final 8 potentially still is Connacht. So every other team now is out of that running. Obviously Sharks suffering that huge defeat to Edinburgh has pretty much finished their chances. So they'll be absolutely kicking themselves with that. But yeah, let's talk final 8 before we actually get into that game over in Treviso. So we'll try to delay that conversation for as long as possible. Look, with 2 rounds to go, we pretty much have our definitive final 8 mapped out, except maybe a bit of dust in the wind here with Connacht. But I suppose what we don't have there is the positionings, right? So we have the potential 8, we just don't have where they line up. And it's very tight. Like a grain of rice could tip the scale realistically on that 8. It's a very entertaining setup going into the last 2 rounds. And just for reference there, 9 points separates DHL Stormers at the top there with Ulster in 8th position. So, a 2 bonus point win versus 2 losses could actually change that entirely. So yeah, let's just go through that table. Let's try to identify whereabouts we can see the final points adding up, and we'll start off with Cardiff, I suppose. And yeah, look, Cardiff probably have the hardest challenge ahead of them, even so much that they could potentially fall out at the final 8. They currently sit pretty there in 6th with 50 points, but they play Glasgow Warriors in Glasgow, and then DHL Stormers in Cardiff. So home game there for DHL Stormers. But look, the thing that's really killing them there is they have a -2 points difference. And if we just go with who we potentially might see them, being knocked out by, is Connacht. And Connacht have a +7 points difference. So even if they draw points-wise with them, Cardiff are gone. And that would be a disaster for Welsh rugby because every other Welsh club is currently out of contention for this final 8. A losing bonus point and a 4-try bonus point in each game still won't even be enough if Connacht were to win both games, and that's it. No extra bonus points. Just get that. So if they do that poorly and let's say they lose both games without any points, and Connacht then technically only need 1 win and then a losing bonus point and a 4-try bonus point in one of their games. So yeah, that's bad. It's bad, but it's not as bad as Ulster, because Ulster actually have the very same 2 opponents. They have DHL Stormers and Glasgow Warriors, but of course they have 3 less points than Cardiff. So yeah, look, the only thing that's going for them here is that they have home advantage for both of those games. But again, I think they'll be panicked. I think they will be panicked. They have been suffering serious injury woes. That list is just ever growing for them at the moment, and it's really what damaged them against Munster. And like, if you could see the defeat they got against Munster, I know it was an away game, but it was a very poor defeat by them. And yeah, I think honestly, I think Connacht are they're probably going to get this eighth position. So it's either going to be Cardiff or Ulster that are going to be the ones to be kicked off that table. So let's just focus on Connacht then for a minute, considering they will be the ones who would take that position, and they do have that opportunity to grab the tournament by the skin of their teeth. So they play Munster in round 17, and that's in Dexcom Stadium in Galway. So huge advantage there for them. Munster probably on the forefoot a little bit after being kicked out of the Champions Cup and then also the Challenge Cup, not going their way currently. And then following on from that, Connacht then play Edinburgh, but that's in Edinburgh in round 18. Now, of course, Edinburgh have had an absolute mare of a tournament so far. Yeah, okay, fair enough, they bet Celtic Sharks, but yeah, come on, Celtic Sharks also having an absolute mare of a tournament. The Munster game will be tough. I do believe that. I do think they'll win that game though. I think the home advantage, the crowd behind them, the drive, they've nothing. They have to go out and win, so they've nothing to lose really by just throwing their bodies on the line there. So yeah, I think they actually will come ahead of Munster. I do also think they'll come ahead of Edinburgh, and even if they just win them without bonus points, that's 8 points. So someone is losing there, either Cardiff or Ulster. But as I said, a standard bonus point, without the bonus points there, it's 8 points. They're going to knock one of them out. Now, moving on from Connacht there, Bulls. So Bulls actually have pulled the best straws ever for the last 2 rounds. They play both Italian teams, both of them in South Africa, so both home games. So they have Zebra Parma first, and then they have Benetton second, or last, should I say, in round 18. And I can't see either of those two teams beating Bulls at home. Fair enough, Benetton, they blitzed us there yesterday. An awful game for us, really, but I can't see them going to South Africa and actually doing any, fantastic work there to beat the Bulls. They're so good at home. They have the altitude, they have the heat. I think they have it in the bag there. Now, I do love an underdog. I do love an underdog, and look, playing devil's advocate there, we could see them removed by Connacht if Ulster and Cardiff were to do well. I can't see that happen though. I can't see them not secure bonus point wins against both Zebra and Benetton. So, where does that leave us? Yeah, well, look, with my prediction, DHL Stormers will retain the pole position. So I think they'll beat both Ulster and Cardiff. They'll get the max points. They're going to be first. I believe Glasgow Warriors there, they'll retain the second place. Obviously, they're playing both those teams as well. I think they'll both beat them, bonus points as well, no problem. I think we'll be third. I think we'll beat Lions and we'll beat Ospreys as well. So they're both home games. God, touch wood, every bit of wood around me here at the moment. Touch wood that we beat both of them with bonus point wins. In fourth, I do think Bulls they're going to leapfrog up from seventh there with those 2 bonus point wins against the Safa Italian games essentially. So they'll leapfrog up to fourth. Munster actually, I do believe they'll drop down to fifth. And I say that because it's I like they'll probably will beat the Lions at home, and they have that in Thomond Park, but round 18 I think they actually will lose to Connacht, so I can't see them going any higher than that. I think they'll stay in they'll drop down to fifth, which isn't a bad position for them really, considering the tournament they've had so far. Lions there, I do think will drop down to sixth position. I don't think they're going to fall out any more than that. They currently sit third, but I just can't see them beating Leinster or Munster, both away games. Just, it's not going to happen. And then this is where it gets saucy then. This is where it gets a little bit squeaky bum time for the rest of the teams there. I think Cardiff will end up seventh, right? I think they won't win any of the games, but they will get bonus points from them, 4 try bonus points. And then I'm gonna call this now. I'm gonna call it. I do think Connacht are gonna knock Ulster out of the final 8 by winning their last 2 games, and I think Ulster are gonna lose both of their ones. So yeah, not great. I want to see all the provinces finish up in the 8th there in the URC, but I think one of them are going to go, and unfortunately I do think it's going to be Ulster. I think Connacht just have it. I think they just have enough to get through that. So there you go. I'll go through that once again. First, DHL Stormers. 2, Glasgow Warriors. 3, Leinster. 4, Bulls. 5, Munster. 6, Lions. 7, Cardiff. And then number 8, Connacht. So what would that mean then for the quarterfinals? Well, as you know, it goes QF1 will be the team in the pole position will play the team in 8th. Team in 2nd plays team in 7th. Team in 3rd plays team in 6th, and then 4th plays team in 5th, with obviously home advantage here going 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would mean DHL Stormers will play Connacht, obviously in South Africa. You have Glasgow Warriors versus Cardiff. That's in Scotstown Stadium. You'll have Leinster versus Lions again, literally just after playing them. That'll be in the Aviva. And then you'll have Bulls versus Munster, and that'll be in South Africa as well. And yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately where the Benetton loss is after kicking us again, like doubly or even tenfold if you want. Because, we won't actually get that second positioning, which means, we could potentially be sent over to South Africa for a semi-final. So not great. That's totally incorrect, because in those standings, as far as I know, quarterfinal 2 would play the winners of quarterfinal 3, which means we'd actually go to Glasgow Warriors. So we'd have to go to Scotstown Stadium. You know what? I wouldn't mind another shot at Glasgow if that's the case, and have Sam rub Hastings' hair there after we fucked him up the second time round. That would be poetic justice. But look, we won't get ahead of ourselves. We'll take every week as it comes. And in going in that, let's go back to the week at hand and talk about, unfortunately, that Benetton game in Treviso. So look, score ended up 29-26 to Benetton. Obviously them getting a penalty at the last there inside the red and slotting that over. A perfect penalty, in fairness to him. My prediction here was 19-35 to Leinster. So yeah, I don't know. Thank God I'm not a betting man, because I think that would have been the one I would have put the house on. And I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. Anyway, let's get into it. So, look, a dramatic and also traumatic late collapse there for us. We were leading 19-5 at halftime. Like, I don't know. We conceded 24 unanswered points there. So, like, that's... I don't know. It's Jacob Umaga with the penalty there in the end. It's just... They're so good. They were so good in the second half. You can't really fault them. The only team you can obviously fault there is Leinster in the second half. Like, Benetton just really threw the fridge at us. It was just fantastic. And obviously that, as I said, it's costly for us in home advantage now coming into those quarterfinals and semi-final rounds. But yeah, look, anyway, let's go into the overall opinion there. Look, I think in the preview I didn't really say it, but it kind of came across me there. Whenever I see a headline saying, X number changes for Y team against Z, I normally shrug that off as something like some half-arse journalism, that it's just an easy thing to write. It's like, they made 4 changes, they mustn't really care. However, when you see the article come out to say Leinster make 13 changes for the trip to Treviso, I just think like that was a bit much, right? It's just like, do we care that little, or are we so afraid of getting any injury that will completely change that team that we bet Ulster with? It seems very crazy. But anyway, in the preview episode, you would have noticed that I didn't describe him as some sort of dad's army or anything. It is a well-established set of players. They all have very good individual stats. They've all played very good games throughout the season. But the problem with that is they haven't played good games throughout the season with each other. So we ended up having this mixed match of players who obviously aren't familiar with each other playing this game. And obviously the second half, we made a good few substitutions early on in it, and that was just the wrong decision. I just think it was it just became something else. It became a complete, like, okay, I know that the trope here, a game of two halves, but this actually was, I think this is what that phrase came from, literally a game of two halves. Because if you had turned the TV off at halftime, you probably would have chalked it off as, another dominating win in Treviso. Yeah, something that we don't really care about. We beat them every other time. It's 19-5. We looked so dominant. Yeah, don't need to watch the rest of that. Beating the dead horse kind of situation. And if someone was to come around and say to you, well, actually, we lost that game, you'd call them crazy. But like, no, not a chance. So look, anyway, a frustrating one, a very damaging defeat for us, a very familiar second half really, but normally we actually come out on top of these. And I was actually only discussing this on Instagram there with a listener, Ty Ryan, that I do love to see Leinster tried and tested. I love a bit of grit, I love a bit of hardship, but I love it when we pull through anyway. And we've done that all season. We've done that hardship, we've done the dirty wins, the ugly wins, the wins that came out of nowhere. Those are... We need those. It's how we played all season, as I said. It's the opposite of what we did last year, and we faltered in the knockout stages. because we weren't tested. And I thought this is actually exactly what a bit of battle testing, a bit of crack, a bit of edge of your seat stuff. And the first half was absolutely stellar. Stellar rugby. Like 3 tries, a fantastic ambition in the attack. A completely another entity, really. Like it was a different team altogether. Even with the 13 changes, like you couldn't really fault them. And then the second half, it just fell apart. It's as if they just went into the dugout and just said to each other, lads, we just rest ourselves now for the European clash next weekend. Like it kind of came across as that, because it came out with this lackluster kind of feel to it, and it just kind of ruined it. It just ruined the whole thing. And look, fantastic for Benetton, obviously, that you could see it in them when they won it. When that penalty went over, it was as if they had just won the European Champions Cup. They were jumping around the place, and in fairness, it is a huge victory for them to come out on top against Leinster. No, well, any team really, but Leinster obviously are the ones that they've seen time and time again come over to Treviso and wipe the floor with them. But yeah, anyway, look, let's get into some of the stats here, some of the actual set plays, the set pieces, and see if we can identify what exactly went wrong. The scrums were just a huge concern. Now, obviously, Tyke Furlong was he's forced off very early in the game, like 27 minutes in, and I think that really knocked us for 6. I think we were under pressure anyway with Porter not being there. And the fact that Tyke Furlong, I think it really did knock the confidence out of us. And then, Clarkson and Cahir they suffered very poorly there. And the Benetton pack was massive. Very, very massive and very strong. So, yeah, look, we've seen it with the Six Nations there, with the Italian team, which they actually have a good few players from. They completely dominated our scrums, and obviously we didn't change that. So, yeah, very unfortunate there. Lineups were a bit mixed. Conor Tierney and Dan Sheehan actually combined very well. Conor Tierney's, the first 2 tries actually were set piece balls from them, so fantastic in terms of that. But then I think it was the second half, we just had these like botched like trick lineup plays there by Gibson Park, just very strange, and like especially in the late stages, we should have been very solid, just go through the maul plays, but we didn't, and it cost us a number of points as well. Moving over there, yeah, defense was Jesus. Jesus. I'm trying my best here not to be depressing in this episode. I'm always trying to put a positive spin, or there's a silver lining somewhere here. Maybe it's because it's all a lesson learned and we won't do it against Toulon. But yeah, look, defense was poor, lads. It was abysmal. It was one of those games where you just kind of wanted them at the end, when it was 26-all, just kick the fucking ball, kick the ball over the line, take the 3 points, and go home and counter chickens and make sure we're all right. But yeah, look, Ignacio Mendy there, he was a fantastic player. Nicholas Gasparini, I thought Nicholas Gasparini should have got the man of the match. He's just such a powerful player. And then obviously Jamie Osborne there was penalised for an illegal clear out at the end, was just, God, Jesus, so bad. Defence was just so bad. We're falling off tackles there, left, right and centre. Like, Sheehan normally never falls off tackles, and he was falling off tackles. It's just something crazy. And then the cherry on top for our defence was the two maul over tries, the rolling mauls that Benetton scored. Like, it made us look like a Sunday League team, which was just so depressing to watch. I remember watching the first one. It was in the 67th minute, I think it was. That one where they just went up in the line out, got a load of men behind them all, pushed. I think they had an advantage as well, and then they just broke through the left. And I think it was just Sam Prendergast and Tommy O'Brien. They had no hope of stopping the two lads, like massive lads. But I was just thinking, that was like, they have a big pack, but my God, like we've been always fantastic at stopping that play. We've always been fantastic at denying rolling mauls. So when that happened, I was like, oh Jesus, right, okay. At least that happened now, and we can defend against it if we know what they're going to do with the next time. And then it happened the next time. It was like a carbon copy. But it just did the same thing. And then they scored that one, and I just hung my head in shame. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that they got two pretty much uncontested rolling mauls. It was just ridiculous. Anyway, moving on from the defence, and I won't say it. I'm not going to say the Nina Bar line. I've seen it on Reddit enough. If you know what it is, you might be saying in your head, I'm not going to repeat the narrative. It is what it is. We can work through it. Going over there to something that actually was quite nice. The silver lining, as I call it. The attack. The attack was absolutely excellent. It was excellent in patches maybe, but it was still excellent, right? Discipline just wasn't really there in the second half. And I think if we had the discipline, we would have absolutely wiped the floor with them. We were constantly probing and stressing the Benetton defence. The passes was just a problem. The passes just didn't quite stick, and it actually felt like we were going backwards from the gain line with some of the passes. We're just going way too deep back into ourselves, and the running up to that and the pod just wasn't really there. But look, I think Frawley, he had a try chalked off for forward pass. That was one of them. Gibson Park, he had a botched try to the trick line out play as well. Wasn't great, but the attack actually was decisive. It was strong. It was fast paced. And it was deep, like Conor Tierney there, obviously scoring one as well. It was a fantastic one. And then, the Dan Sheehan breakthrough, that was fantastic. Like he does what he does best. So I think in places, if we had the discipline was just better, I think we would have tore through that Benetton defence. They had gaps. They couldn't stop us. They tried to do their scramble defence for us, and it wasn't working. It was just the discipline. The discipline just let us down at the end of the day. And like I said, I do think it's probably because we haven't had that team play with each other non-stop. And maybe we should have just played our first team, as much of them as we could. Like the French do it the whole time. I don't see it as an issue. If you pick up injuries, yeah, fair enough. But you would have actually got through it and gave them another bite at a win there. But instead now we actually have to kind of hope that the table works for us. Anyway, let's go over here to notable players. Obviously, there was some fantastic individual performances there. Conor Tierney was obviously immense. He won his own line-out ball for 2 key try assists there as well. He went over himself as well for the first try for us. He's just a massive physical presence. He's so tall as well. So look, I think him as a lock is fantastic. Obviously, I would have liked Ryan there. I would have liked Bear there as well. But look, it is what it is. I think he played well individually, very good. As well as that, Josh van der Fleer, relentless as well. He made yards pretty much the entire night. He crashed over for Leinster's second try. Hard to fault him. The result doesn't really speak to him as an individual player. Jamison Gibson Park as well. I know he fucked up that kind of trick play in the line out, but he actually had fantastic pace, and when he got kind of substituted off, I was kind of hoping that he'd stay on for the whole time. But anyway, yeah, I think he drove the tempo there, and he normally does. So fantastic player. And then last but not least, Dan Sheehan. Yeah, look, I think you could probably put him in the notable players every week. He's one of the top. He just doesn't have bad games. Okay, he fell off a few tackles there, but he also made up for that in carries. In defence, otherwise, in try assists as well, and obviously all the lineouts as well. So it's, yeah, he's kind of, I would call him probably the neutral player there, but still a very good individual performance. Referee there was Morn Ferreira. I do think he didn't. No, actually, I don't like blaming the ref, and I'm not going to blame the ref for that loss. I'm just going to say one thing, which is worth a mention, as you might say. I do think Benetton's offside line wasn't refereed enough. I think they were constantly offline, and then there was that one line out where he just gave them a free pass to take it again, even though they infringed their own line out. Anyway, let's just move along. Just look in a line. We left it in Treviso, and it's going to bite us in the arse now coming into the positionings of the table going into the quarterfinals. Okay, folks, let's just go into the match events here very quickly. So, 9th minute there, we did try for Benetton, Alessandro Garbisi. Perfect little offload by Paolo Adogu. That was not converted, brought score to and Benetton 5, Leinster 0. 12th minute then, we had our first try, Conor Tierney. Perfect little line-out move there. Sheehan threw it into him, and that was converted successfully by Harry Byrne, brought to score. Benetton 5, Leinster 7. 37 minutes then, try for Leinster, Josh van der Fleer. And once again, another Tierney line-out as well. Doris carried that and handed off to Josh van der Veer, and that was successfully converted by Harry Byrne, brought to score to Benetton 5, Leinster 14. And that was also the score at half time. 43rd minute then, try for Leinster, James against the park. A perfect combination with Dan Sheehan, who made a perfect little line break. And then he just followed up alongside him. Perfect little pass to him, did a little dummy and a goose step to defeat the last defender. That was unsuccessfully converted. Brought to score Benetton 5, Leinster 19. 48th minute then, and this is the start of the downfall, unfortunately. Try for Benetton, Ignacio Mendy. Just he beat Gibson Park there, last defender on the outside. Quite poor defence, but anyway. That was converted by Umaga. Brought to score to Benetton 11, Leinster, or Benetton 12, Leinster 19. 58th minute then, another try for Benetton. Nicholas Gasparini, perfect little line-out maul. Yeah, one of the ones that really hurt us. And that was one I was talking about, where he just kind of broke through in the back and there was no one really there to stop it. That was also successfully converted by Umaga. Brought to score even then, 19-19. 65th minute then, a try for Leinster and a very nice one by Kieran Frawley. It was a Sheehan break. Gunn did a very long pass out to the wing, and Frawley actually got tackled but brought the ball over and tapped it down. That was converted by Sam Prendergast, actually, a very difficult one. Brought to score 26-19. 75th minute then, another try for Benetton, and once again Nicholas Gasparini, and this once again was the line out maul, which drove me demented. That was also successfully converted by Maga, brought to score even again to 26-26. And then last but not least, and very unfortunately, in the 80th minute, we gave away a very silly penalty inside of our own 22, which was put over by Jacob Umaga. And we lost that full-time score, Benetton 29, Leinster 26. So let's just forget about that, silver lining, and off we go. Okay, folks, the next game is Leinster versus Toulon, and that is the semi-final of the Champions Cup, Saturday, May 2nd, obviously 2026. That is in the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. Tickets, I believe, are still available, so do check leinsterrugby.ie for those. But yeah, look, painful one to swallow. The real business starts next week. We just go on. Every game is another game. We have it. Let's just keep going. Let's support the lads in blue. Semi-final. Get into that final of the Champions Cup. Can't wait. It'll be electric to be in Bilbao. But yeah, that's her, folks. If you haven't already, do please follow us on social media. Obviously Instagram, Reddit, Blue Sky. And look, if you are at the game next week, it'll be a great one to be at. If you're not, try to land a ticket there. Just try to get down to that and support lads in blue. And as always, thanks for listening.